Hello, Authentic Freedom Community. You know me, I'm Lori. And today is Saturday, April 24th. And I want to thank the community members that were so patient and understanding in my need to cancel yesterday's spiritual service. And I wanted to offer some words of support as we are collectively moving through an interesting transition, if you will, in our human evolution. And perhaps the best way that I can describe this, or at least begin to describe this, is based on what I've been witnessing and experiencing and what I've been seeing in others in this past week. And it all began with what I would describe as a high level of anxiety. And I first became aware of this energy probably uh, this past Sunday, and definitely Monday, whatever the date was on Monday. And it was a really strange anxiety because it was more of a sense of trepidation. There was an overwhelming sensation around it. And both myself and those with whom I spoke about this with and who were sharing similar feelings and experiences, it felt very much like a collective anxiety, something that was coming not just from ourselves as individuals, but something that was in the force, if you will, a disturbance in the force. And as I sat with that energy, what I really became aware of was kind of a collective holding of our breath in anticipation of the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. And that anxiety became almost unbearable Tuesday morning as um, the jury was in deliberation and the world was anxious. And we know that the world was anxious because there were military troops and SWAT teams that were deployed in large cities in anticipation of potential violence. And as I say that, I'm reminded of a situation not so many years ago, but definitely present within our collective memory. And that was the Rodney King trial and what the outcome was of that. And the racial, um, I don't want to say racial conflict or division, the rioting and the upset that came as a result of that for because of a verdict that was not as people had hoped that it would be. And so I think we all knew on some level that if the jury came down with a not guilty verdict, that Minneapolis, Minnesota, the whole nation, perhaps the world, would be in an uproar. And rightly so, especially with all of the evidence that clearly demonstrated excessive force, perhaps not the intent to kill, but force, excessive force that caused someone's unnecessary death. So when the verdict came down as guilty, 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 there was a collective sigh of relief. Oh, thank God. But that relief didn't last very long. For on that very day, a Black child was shot by a white police officer as she was trying to defend herself as someone was trying to stab her. And that collective sigh then became overwhelmed. The overwhelming reality of racism and corruption in law enforcement and all of the other kinds of corruption that are still present in our world, regardless of a guilty, guilty, guilty verdict. So on the other side of that sigh of relief is a heavier sigh in response to the overwhelming work that is ahead of us. The overwhelming work of ultimately healing division, and specifically as it relates to the events of the past week, racism, corruption in law enforcement, police brutality. And as I say that, I'm reminded that not all police officers are acting out in this way. And I am grateful to live in a community where I have witnessed the good work of good law enforcement personnel. I've seen the compassion, the patience, the gentleness. Is there racial profiling happening in Oshkosh, Wisconsin? Probably. In fact, I know that it is. And I've also seen the other side of that. Good, kind, gentle, patient men and women of service, not just enforcing the law, but trying to support healing, trying to resolve conflict, trying to keep people safe. So that's that piece. And that has its own compartment as it relates to the energies of this week. And a part of that compartment, in spite of that overwhelm, is the hope, at least for me, the belief that we have turned a corner, that we have said enough, and that enough people are interested in bringing forth positive change in our world that we might actually see some change taking place. Again, that's one compartment of the energies of this week. The other compartment is related to our own journey of transformation as I have been witnessing it within this community. The women and men that are part of the Authentic Freedom community and who have gathered here either live or virtually or in quiet and in their own private way, I have witnessed a transformation that is taking place that to me is exciting and humbling and fills me with wonder and awe. Because what I'm seeing is women and men not only embracing their divine calling, their divinity, but embodying that. Taking what, for many of us, has only been theories or ideas and bringing it into form. Giving form to our own unique calling and the way in which we are called to live and move and be in this world. It's a countercultural way because it is not forceful. It's not about achievement or recognition or money or power. It's about service. And that service begins with service to ourselves. Service to ourselves in the nurturing and support of our calling. Taking the time to cultivate that deep inner relationship with ourself and with what we might call God, or perhaps we have personalized that even more in recognizing that divine spark that dwells within. Nurturing, cultivating, tending that flame of the divine that dwells within us and seeks to be known through us in the world. This is our highest calling. And it transcends labels, career paths, titles, or even jobs. This calling cannot be identified in terms like, for me, educator, author, writer, spiritual counselor, healer. Yes, those are all things that I do, but it's not who I am. It's not who you are. It is our cultural conditioning that prompts us to look after titles, job, career paths, something that's identifiable and can be given a name. But the truth is that the work of a priest, priestess, I'm getting rid of that one. Our work is beyond that. And as I say that, I have to chuckle because one of the hardest things for me has always been, people ask me, what do you do? I don't know how to answer that question. I don't even know how to explain or describe the work that I do in the world. And when I do, mostly I'm met with a blank stare. So I've kind of stopped trying. Because ultimately it's in our being that our work is done. And we have been moving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that state of being ourself, being love, compassion, peace, joy, curiosity, courage, strength. Also being fear, wounded, vulnerable, fragile. And it is that vulnerable and fragile piece that has been most present during this week. And I'm aware that that fragile piece is coming forward for a couple different reasons. One is as we arrive deeper and deeper and deeper and closer to the center of our being, everything that is not in alignment with that gets shaken off, gets moved through, is brought to the surface to be seen, addressed, transformed. Some of the fragility that people have been experiencing in this last week might be part of that. Another part of that is what I call a healing crisis. And again, it's part of our journey towards self-realization. The closer we come to ourselves, especially when we've had a significant breakthrough of sorts, as many in this community have had, as we moved through that goddess chakra activation and meditation practice. That is a powerful practice that really gets at the core of healing that our core wound of separation. And in healing that wound, it's not unlike receiving a Reiki attunement or any other sort of energy, powerful energy initiation that you might have gone through. And when those initiations take place, that is when our wounds come forward because they're just being released. So for me, it manifested in severe vertigo attack, a migraine, full body migraine, pain, exhaustion, just basically feeling like crap. And yesterday was total immobility. All I could do was sit on the couch and watch Attack on Titan with my daughter, who was also going through similar symptoms. That pain, that vulnerability, that fragility, number one, reminds us that we're human. Number two, is the body shaking off the old, shaking off that which no longer serves. It's like we were injected with light, and I don't want to say darkness, the debris was cast off. There's also a profound invitation in these moments of fragility. And I became very aware within myself of the voice in the head. Was it something I ate? Was it something I drank? Maybe I'm not taking enough care of myself. Maybe I need to do this. Da 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 da. What's wrong with me? Do I need to see a doctor? I mean, all of that chatter goes on in the head. There's also that temptation to condemn the body. Along with that is the temptation to divorce ourselves from the body, to embrace what I think is a distorted idea that we are not body, we are spirit. And I disagree with that. We are spirit and we are body. And we are meant to be fully both. That means when our body is showing its vulnerability, showing its fragility, showing its woundedness, in the same way that we cultivate and tend that fire of the spirit within us, we are also called to tend the body, to give the body the care, the concern, the love, the nurturing, the pampering, the rest that it needs. And this is especially important living in the world in which we are living. Humanity was not meant to live at this pace, to live under this pressure, to live under the constant driving, striving, achieving, moving, conquering. We are not meant to live that way. We are meant to live gently, compassionately, slowly. And when we are living in a world that is so aggressive and our souls are so non-aggressive, it is ever more important to tend to the body. So ultimately, my words of support for us as we continue through this journey of embodiment is to tend to the body, to love the body, to acknowledge its needs, to be gentle and non judging, to allow the body to yield to the body in the way that it needs to be. The authentic freedom lesson that will accompany this post reflects that invitation of embodiment, that we are called to embody our divine self, our divine nature, and that this is why we are here. So thank you. Be gentle with yourself. I give you permission to give yourself permission to slow down, to rest, to yield. And I'll look forward to the next time that we can meet face to face. Thank you.